is that Donald Trump seems to be fighting with Silicon Valley. He's now accusing Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg of being sympathetic to China, number one. Furthermore, at this point, the Justice Department is now investigating Silicon Valley, the tech companies, for being monopolies. And it seems to me that Silicon Valley represents a particular wing of the American ruling class. It's tied to the intelligence agencies. In fact, you can Google this. And it's weird. You say this kind of thing to people. You say to people that Silicon Valley and the computer revolution was the work of the CIA. And people look at you like, oh my God, where's your tinfoil hat? Oh, did the space aliens tell you that? Google it, right? That actually it's one of the most successful things the intelligence agencies did, is set up and channel the money to create, they saw that the Soviet Union didn't have the resources. They had the innovation, they had the skills, they just didn't have the resources to keep up with the computer revolution. And we weren't sharing technology with them because of the treaties. And so the CIA and the intelligence agencies worked really hard to push a lot of money into Silicon Valley. And, and it didn't stop after the end of the Cold War. The intelligence agencies, they really pushed for the creation of Google. They really pushed for the creation of different things. And those links are, look it up, right? The NSA, the CIA, the various intel agencies have a lot to do with Silicon Valley, right? And because of that, they seem to be particularly tied to a faction of the ruling elite of the United States that is tied to the intelligence agencies. That faction being the Ford Foundation, the Rockefellers, that wing, right? The big oil companies, that wing of the American capital. That seems to be where the sympathies of Silicon Valley lie. Meanwhile, it seems like Trump is more tied to fracking companies. He's more tied to, folks in the ruling class like Betsy DeVos who feel like they're not part of the club. Where did Betsy DeVos's money come from? Came from Amway, right? Selling Tupperware. She's not part of the club. She's not in with Rockefeller. She's a billionaire, but she's not part of the club, right, of these entrenched ruling circles. There are divides between the ruling class. And if you look at the entities, that are tied with the National Endowment for Democracy, or tied with the, the Silicon Valley folks, or tied in with, with the Ford Foundation and the CIA, those folks have one agenda. And it seems that Trump is on the other side. He was closer to the Pentagon. And it's interesting to note that, also the Bernie Sanders wing seems to not be in with that faction either. You'll notice that Bernie Sanders is also calling up for the investigation and the breaking up of tech monopolies. But what is interesting is that when Hillary Clinton was running the State Department during the Obama administration, right, when she was running the State Department for Obama, Silicon Valley and the State Department worked closer than ever before. They worked hand in hand like you wouldn't believe. Seriously. For example, there was an individual by the name of Jared Cohen. And Jared Cohen was on the board of Google Alphabet. And during the Arab Spring, this is openly admitted, right? Not a secret. Look up Jared Cohen. During the Arab Spring, he was a State Department employee who was coordinating social media for the State Department. He was making sure that everything went right when people were out in the streets, and the protests against the government of Libya, the protests against the government of Syria. Jared Cohen was in the State Department in 2011, and he was on the board of Google Alphabet at the same time. Right? This is not a secret. And that wing of the ruling class, those wealthy families, that entrenched circle, those folks that are in with the CIA, that are in with the Ford Foundation, that are in with Silicon Valley, that faction, that you can call it, the New England establishment, that's what a lot of people have referred to him as, the New England establishment, that axis, Rockefeller, Ford Foundation, Silicon Valley, Hillary Clinton, DNC, that wing of things, the folks that are now supporting Kamala Harris, that axis represents probably, I would say, the most dangerous section of the ruling class of the United States right now. I mean, we saw what happened, when Hillary Clinton was running the State Department. That wing, that represents probably the most dangerous faction. And they're not Bernie Sanders liberals, they're not social democrats, they're not democratic socialists, but they're not Trump people either. They are a particular faction. They're liberals in the sense that they're Malthusians. They think there's too many people in the world. right? They're liberals in the sense that they think there's too many. They believe in global warming, too many people in the world. They're liberals in the sense that they want to utilize the oppression of LGBT people to justify sanctions and wars. They're liberals in the sense that they want to perhaps have things be more stable in the United States so they can focus on building a global empire, and if that means having a social program here and there. But at the end of the day, they represent the most effective and the most entrenched power in the United States. And they are the folks that brought us libertarianism, mind you. Ayn Rand was promoted like crazy by the Ford Foundation and the Ford Hall Forum. In 1972, Ayn Rand spoke at the Ford Hall Forum, right? And the same people that brought us, MK Ultra and drugs also brought us, I kid you not, they also brought us Ayn Rand. They also brought us Milton Friedman. Where was Milton Friedman presented, right? Milton Friedman did a TV miniseries, right? Free to choose, promoting his free market, deregulate, privatize everything garbage. Where was it screened? On PBS. And look at who paid for it. Brought to you by the Ford Foundation, right? That's who these folks are, right? They are the more effective evil. They are Harvard and Yale. And that's the folks that brought us Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger was a Rockefeller creation from the beginning. This is the more effective evil. This is the most effective evil. This is the long-standing, entrenched power of wealth in the United States. This is the New England establishment. This is the oil banking elite. These are the people that brought us Silicon Valley. This is the deep state ruling class. This is who I'm talking about. That particular faction. That at this point is around the DNC. They loved Bush. They liked Bush. They didn't have a problem with Bush, right? The James Comey wing, right? James Comey, all of them, that wing, right? That is now at this point in the Democratic Party, probably only because of the fact that demographics are changing in the United States. They know that, right? They know that the United States is increasingly becoming more and more a country that is less white and people of color. It's more and more in urban areas. The population is moving into urban centers. They see the trends, so now they're Democrats. They would have been Republicans during the Bush years. They would have been Republicans during the Reagan years. But they were, it's that wing, that New England establishment, right? That Rockefeller, DuPont, Vanderbilt, Carnegie, that wing of American capital, right? You talk about the six families. Do people ever talk about the six families anymore? During the Great Depression, everybody knew about the six families that ruled the United States. Rockefeller, Carnegie, DuPont, Mellon, right? Mellon. I'm trying to think. There was a couple other ones. It was the six families. I don't even know them now, but everybody knew the six families, right? These are the people. These are the people that have astronomical amounts of power. And Silicon Valley is theirs, and the intelligence agencies are theirs. The Morgans, right? Kinky says J.P. Morgan, and she's right about that. The Morgans, the Vanderbilts, right? This is the wing. This is the most evil wing of the establishment. Okay, folks? I'm saying that, and I'm not getting Trump off the hook. Trump disgusts me. That send her back stuff, the anti-immigrant bigotry. No one here is supporting Donald Trump. But I'm telling you, folks, the most evil faction in the United States, the most evil faction, is that New England establishment. These people have evil down to a science. They know how to overthrow governments. They know how to reduce countries economically to rubble. If you want to know what these people are about, this is evil, right? These are the folks that brought us Ayn Rand. They brought us Milton Friedman. These are the folks that believe that compassion is weakness, right? That if you care about other people, that's weakness. That's something we need to breed out of us, right? We all need to be compassionless, hateful creatures. These are people that believe we need to drastically reduce the human population. They're talking about reducing the human population by half. There's just too many of us in the world. We need to reduce the human population. That's who these people are, right? That New England establishment, right? And yes, the Rothschilds are in with them, sure. But it's you say Rothschilds, people say anti-Semitism. Most of these ruling families are not Jewish. And if you want to make it about Jews, that's anti-Semitism. This is not about race. This is not about ethnicity, okay? This is about certain circles of wealth. mainly tied in with big oil, mainly tied in with banks, and now tied in with the intel agencies more than anything. This is finance capital. This is the lifeblood of Wall Street. This is not the lower level insider trading guys. This isn't Wall Street stockbrokers and all of that. This is the lifeblood of Wall Street. This is JP Morgan Chase. This is Goldman Sachs, right? This is Citibank. This is GEO Group. This is Bank of America. Those folks. Right? The financial center of Western power that is very closely tied in with Britain. That's where the Rothschilds are at. They're in Britain. They're not based in the United States. That's where BP is at. That's where HSBC Bank, a whole bank set up for the purpose of hooking Chinese people on opium so that they could be subjugated and oppressed, right? This is the center, the wing of the American establishment that is the most dangerous. And they are in the process right now of trying to roll back human history. I kid you not. They are talking about overpopulation. They're talking about how there's just too many people in the world. And they really, I mean, if you want to see what these folks have in store for the world, look at South America in the 90s, before the rise of the Bolivarian socialist movement, before Hugo Chavez, before Evo Morales. Look at South America in the 1990s. Look at Bolivia, where it was a crime. It was a crime to collect water on your roof. It was a crime to collect water on your rooftop. It was a crime to collect water on your rooftop because the water of Bolivia had been sold to American corporations. In Venezuela during the 1990s. All right, the government would lay off all kinds of government workers in the power plants and the sanitation facilities. And every year they'd go back. They needed these development loans. And so they would go back to the development loans, and they'd say, oh, you got to lay off more people. And it got to the point that whole neighborhoods, working class neighborhoods in Venezuela, didn't have electricity for weeks. Not because the power plant didn't work, just the government just didn't have the money, and it laid off the workers, and it was unbelievable. Garbage wouldn't be collected. In poor neighborhoods, what we're talking about here with neoliberalism, economic neoliberalism wedded with social liberalism, right? Right? Free markets, privatize everything, gut the standard of livings, have one giant global economy or an open international system. That's another brilliant one from Hillary Clinton's State Department. Anne-Marie Slaughter loves that open international system, right? That open international system that has destroyed my home state of Ohio. It's destroyed Pennsylvania. It's destroyed Michigan. Right? That open international system where the whole world gets poorer and wealth concentrates in the hands of a few bankers. That system, that open international system, right? That's what these people are about. And that is the most dangerous wing. And their woman right now is Kamala Harris, right? Kamala Harris, this is a woman who took pleasure in destroying the lives of innocent people. I kid you not, she was, false, she was caught, not turning over evidence and working hard like crazy to keep innocent people in jail. She is a person without a moral compass whom they can manipulate, who they see as their woman, right? And she's a demagogue, she can tell touching stories, and, they love Kamala Harris, right? And California with Kamala Harris, people talk about huge prison populations and all of that. They want to do, and look at California right now. Look at the homelessness problem they have in California right now. Yeah, they're letting people out of jail at this point. Governor Jerry Brown finally started letting people out of jail because the prison population was so ridiculous. Right, but look at California and the huge prison population they have there, right? Huge huge homeless population now, right? They're letting them out of jail. Used to be a huge prison population, now a huge homeless population. All kinds of poverty, but dressed up in talk of white privilege and, gender oppression and all the liberal buzzwords and identity politics while we build a giant prison and we start taking people's jobs away and wages go down and people are ground into poverty and homeless people are out on the street begging and we've got a prison state, but that prison state uses the correct pronouns and it's sympathetic and what are they starting to do now, folks? What are they starting to do now? They're starting to introduce the idea that if you think outside the establishment, you're mentally ill. I kid you not. They're starting that now, right? That was something thing they always accused the Soviet Union of doing, right? Of using the mental health system to silence dissidents. Well, now we're starting to see that, right? That if you question, the fact that capitalism is the best system in the world, you start looking at the articles. Start reading the articles, right? Read the articles. Shout out to Ramiro, who's joining us. Long time. Read the articles, right? Read what they're doing now. The increasing mental health culture, right? Where, the amount of people that are taking medications is through the roof. They're increasingly setting the stage where it's going to be that if you don't think that capitalism is the greatest system, if you don't think that the USA invading Syria and overthrowing Bashar Assad would be the best darn thing in the world, you're crazy. You're mentally ill, and you need to get to a hospital. You need to be medicated because clearly, you don't play well with others, and they won't be mean about it, right? They're not like the Trump people, right? It's they're going to be friendly about it. They're going to talk about white privilege and mansplaining. They're going to talk to you in this nice little voice, and they're going to start locking people up in prison in big numbers. You broke the law, or it's scary, right? I'm telling you, the most evil wing of the American ruling class, as Black Agenda Report famously coined the term, the more effective evil. The more effective evil, it's this faction. It is that New England faction. They are dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. They are dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. They have a left side to them. They're into social liberalism. They have a right-wing side. They're into economic neoliberalism and free markets and libertarian privatizations. They have multiple sides to them, but they hate socialism. They hate socialism, and they hate the American working class. Whether you're black, white, they want the standard of living here to drop, and they want the world population to be cut in half. There's too many people in the world. There's too many workers. We don't need them anymore. We got machines. We got computers. I'm telling you, folks, this is who we're up against. That DNC wing of things. Very, very, very dangerous. And that doesn't mean I support Trump. I don't. And these people hate Bernie Sanders far more than they hate Trump. Far more, right? But, when Bernie Sanders speaks and talks about the need for a mass movement and people struggling for justice, that scares them more than anything. Trump can rile up the rabble in Ohio and Pennsylvania, but that doesn't scare them as much as what Bernie Sanders is saying scares them. Doesn't scare them as much as what, as what Tulsi Gabbard is saying when she exposes their ugly wars, right? This wing of the American ruling class is very, very dangerous. And I'm just telling you, folks, I'm telling you how I see it. I'm telling you the analysis. There's a lot of facts that don't get highlighted. We don't know who all these factions are. We think it's all just a struggle of personalities. Kinky's pointing out, someone said that Bernie makes the skin crawl. Why would Bernie make the skin crawl? You see Kathy Griffin very nervously on there talking against Bernie bros. Oh, Bernie bros are bad. They're awful. I don't like the Bernie, There's a particular faction here. There is a particular faction here. Kamala Harris is their woman. She's their woman, and they don't like Trump, but they really don't like Bernie Sanders, and they are the face of evil. I'm telling you that. Look at who was in Hillary Clinton's State Department. Anne-Marie Slaughter, Jared Cohen, right? Samantha Power, the genocide chick. She jokingly calls herself the genocide chick. This is scary stuff, folks. These are scary people. And, and if you talk about this, people are like, oh, there you go. These are very, very scary folks. This is the intel agency.